Waypoint Tertius hung in the black void of space like a metal flower, its docking arms reaching out to embrace ships from 100 different worlds. The station buzzed with life traders hawking exotic goods, diplomats negotiating treaties, and mercenaries looking for their next contract in the Eastern Quadrant. A hangar bay bore the scorched insignia of a human skull wreathed in flames. This was home to the Terran Reapers, a squadron of human pilots who had earned their reputation through blood and fire across a dozen war zones. Inside the hangar, mechanics worked on sleek fighters while pilots ran combat drills. Squadron leader Jack Marson Calcine. Havoc stood reviewing mission reports when he heard the sound that would change everything. Small footsteps running across metal deck plating little Kira burst through the hangar doors, her violet scales catching the harsh lighting at 7 years old. She was a beautiful contradiction, half human, half draconi, with her mother's golden eyes and small horns barely visible through dark hair. She wore a dress that Sarah Chun had made for her. Now torn at the sleeve, the hangar fell silent as every pilot turned to look. Kira's face was streaked with tears, her scales flickering with colors that signaled distress in draconi physiology. She stumbled forward, nearly falling, and Havoc caught her before she hit the deck. "They hurt my dragon, Mom," she sobbed, her small body shaking. The words hit the assembled pilots like a physical blow. Every person in that hangar knew matriarch Siltherax Mama Sil. As Kira called her, a elderly draconi diplomat had become something of a squadron mascot over the past 2 years. Ever since she'd found Kira starving in the lower maintenance tunnels, Havoc knelt down, his scarred hands gentle as he steadied the crying child. "Tell me what happened," he said, his voice carrying the deadly calm that his enemies had learned to fear. Through hiccuping sobs, Kira explained she and Mama Sil had been at the marketplace, looking at fabrics for new clothes. 3 Corps soldiers had approached them, tall insectoid beings with chitinous armor and clicking mandibles. They had demanded that Mama Sil come with them. When she refused, they attacked. Kira demonstrated with her small hands how they'd struck Mama Sil with shock batons, how one had kicked her when she tried to protect her adopted mother. Korth had broken Mama Sil's wing and dragged her away while station security watched and did nothing. Sarah Chalcine Blade was already moving, her medical kit in hand as she knelt beside Kira. The lieutenant's gentle fingers checked the child for injuries, finding bruises on her ribs where a Korth had kicked her aside. "Where did they take her?" Havoc asked. "The docking bay," Kira whispered. The big ship with the green lights, Diego Ramirez Calcine Fuego, was already at his console, pulling up station schematics. "Korth Collective Warship," he called out. "Docked at Bay 7. Armed transport class with a crew complement of 300. Marcus Williams Calcine." Ghost had his fingers flying across holographic keyboards, slicing through station security like it was wet paper. "I've got surveillance footage," he announced. The hangar's main screen flickered to life, showing the marketplace attack in brutal clarity. The pilots watched as the 3 Korthan forces surrounded. Mama Sil, the elderly draconi, was magnificent even at her age, 12 feet of scaled grace, with wings that shimmered like oil on water when she refused their demands. The first shock baton strike made her cry out. The second broke her wing with an audible crack that made several pilots wince. Kira's small form darted in, trying to shield her dragon mom, and the largest Korth casually kicked the child aside like she was garbage. The watching pilot's expressions shifted from concern to something cold and terrible. Mama Sil had been dragged away, leaving a trail of luminescent blood on the station deck. Station security had arrived 3 minutes too late, then backed off when the Korth showed diplomatic credentials. Havoc stood slowly, his jaw tight around the hangar. The other pilots were already moving. This wasn't a decision that needed debate or discussion. Terran Reapers operated on a simple principle. You protected your own 2 years ago. Mama Sil had found a starving hybrid child that most species would have ignored. She had taken Kira in, loved her, raised her as her own daughter, despite the fact that they shared no blood. The squadron had adopted both of them, the gentle dragon scholar and the bright-eyed little girl who brought cookies to the hangar and drew pictures of their fighters now. Someone had hurt them. The human concept of pack loyalty kicked in with the force of a thermonuclear reaction. Ghost. How long until that ship leaves dock? Havoc asked. 28 minutes, the tech officer replied. Blade. Stay with Kira, get her checked out properly, and keep her safe. Sir. Chun started to protest. That's an order. Lieutenant, we need someone here in case this goes sideways. Blade nodded reluctantly, understanding the logic even as she hated missing the action. Fuego. Break out the heavy gear-breaching charges. AMPs, armor-piercing rounds. Already on it. Boss. Ghost. I want a route from our hangar to their docking bay that avoids main corridors. Pulling it up now. The other pilots needed no orders. They moved with the smooth efficiency of years working together, pulling on power armor and checking weapons. The armor was painted black with the Reaper's skull insignia scorched onto the chest plates. Each suit was customized to its wearer, covered in kill marks, lucky charms, and the scars of 100 battles. Tommy Park, calcined rookie, approached Havoc at 19. He was the youngest pilot in the squadron. Sir, I should come with you. Havoc looked at the kid, then at Kira crying in Blade's arms. Negative. Ensign, you stay here and guard them with your life. But sir, someone hurts a child and walks away. They think they can do it again, Havoc said quietly. We're going to make sure everyone in this sector knows what happens when you hurt our people. But I need to know Kira is protected while we're gone. Rookie swallowed hard and nodded. Drawing his sidearm, Blade carried Kira to the medical station at the back of the hangar. The little girl clutched at the lieutenant's uniform. You'll bring her back? Kira asked. Her voice small. Blade pulled out a battered coin from her pocket, a lucky piece she'd carried through 30 combat missions. You hold on to this for me, she said gently. I'm gonna need you to be brave while we're gone. Can you do that? Kira nodded, gripping the coin tight. The 6 Reapers assembled near the hangar door. They were armed for war rifles, pistols, combat blades, and enough explosives to level a city block. Havoc looked at his team. We go in fast and quiet. Find Mama Sil, get her out, and teach these slavers that humans don't forgive, and we don't forget. Hoorah! The pilots responded in unison as they moved toward the door. Ghost's console beeped. Boss, Station Command is refusing to intervene. The Korth have diplomatic immunity. Havoc's smile was cold enough to freeze helium. Then I guess we're about to create a diplomatic incident. The 6 warriors left the hangar behind them. Kira watched them go, holding Blade's lucky coin and whispering a prayer to gods she barely understood. The station's systems registered 6 human biosignatures. Moving through maintenance corridors, security AI flagged the movement as unusual, but took no action in Bay 7. Matriarch Siltherax hung in a cage designed for beings half her size. Her broken wing twisted at an unnatural angle. She had stopped struggling to save her strength. The Core thought they had won. They had no idea what was coming. They had hurt a dragon mom, and now the humans were coming for them. The 6 Reapers moved through the maintenance corridors like shadows. Their power armor's servos whisper quiet. Despite carrying enough weaponry to fight a small war ghost led the way. His neural interface linked directly to the station systems, feeding him real-time updates on patrol routes and security blind spots. Behind him came Havoc. Then Fuego with his heavy plasma cutter and demolition charges. Followed by the others, they moved in perfect silence, communicating through hand signals and subtle helmet gestures. The maintenance levels of Waypoint Tertius were a maze of pipes, conduits, and access tunnels that most station residents never saw down here. The air recyclers hummed constantly, and the lighting was dim and irregular. It was perfect for what they needed to do. 2 security checkpoints between us and Bay 7. Ghost reported over the private comm channel. Both manned by station personnel, not Korth. We go around, Haddock ordered. No need to involve civilians in this. The team diverted through a vertical shaft, using magnetic clamps on their boots to walk along the walls above them. Normal station life continued. Traders haggled over prices. Families ate dinner. Children played in recreation areas. None of them knew that 6 human warriors were moving through the station's bones, heading toward what would likely become an interstellar incident. Why do you think they took her? Asked Riley Cooper Calcine Hammer as they descended. Ghost pulled some data. Havoc replied quietly. Mama Sil witnessed course slaving operations in the Tarn Nebula about 5 years ago. Testified before the Galactic Council. Let me guess. Fuego growled. Her testimony was inconclusive and nothing happened. The Council buried it. Ghost confirmed. Too many member species do business with the Korth. Didn't want to rock the boat. So they came for her now? Cooper asked. Probably figured with the current political climate, they could make her disappear and no one would ask questions. Fuego's laugh was bitter. They didn't count on her having a human daughter, or a squadron of crazy humans who don't give a damn about diplomatic immunity, added Jake Morrison, Havoc's younger brother. Calcine torch. The truth of it settled over the team like armor. Other species formed alliances through treaties, trade agreements, and carefully calculated political advantage. Humans formed pacts through loyalty and love, and nothing in the galaxy was more dangerous than humans protecting their pack. They emerged from the maintenance shaft 3 levels below the main docking. Ringo's console showed they were now directly beneath Bay 7. How do we get in? Torch asked. We don't, Ghost said with a grin. We go through. Fuego was already setting shaped charges on the ceiling, working with the practiced ease of someone who'd blown through dozens of ship hulls. This is going to be loud, he warned. Can't be helped, Havoc said. Once we breach, we've got maybe 10 minutes before station security responds and maybe 5 before the Korth realize they're under attack. Then we'd better move fast. The team stacked up around the breach point. Weapons ready. Fuego set the timer for 30 seconds, and they all took cover. Behind a support pillar, the explosion was more of a sharp crack than a boom-shaped. Charges were precision tools. A circular section of decking blew upward into Bay 7. Havoc was through the hole. Before the smoke cleared, the bay was massive, designed to accommodate large transport vessels. The fake Korth ship squatted in the center like a malevolent insect. All sharp angles and dark green armor, plating warning lights pulsed along its hull. 2 Korth guards stood near the boarding ramp, their compound eyes swiveling in confusion at the sudden breach. They never had time to raise their weapons. Havoc's rifle coughed twice, armor-piercing rounds punching through chitinous armor. The guards dropped. Secure the ramp, Havoc ordered. Cooper and Torch took up positions while Ghost sprinted to the bay's control console. His fingers danced over the interface, locking down the bay doors and disabling the automated defenses. We're locked in, he reported. Nothing gets in or out unless we say so. Fuego placed breaching charges at the base of the Korth ship's boarding ramp. Ready when you are. Boss, Havoc looked at his team. They were outnumbered 50-1. The Korth ship had hundreds of soldiers, superior armor, and home ground advantage by any logical calculation. This mission was suicide, but logic had nothing to do with it. Somewhere in that ship was an elderly Draconi who had shown kindness to a lost child when no one else would. A grandmother who had given Kira a home and love and safety. A member of their pack. We going fast, Havoc said. Find Mama Sil, get her out. And anyone who gets in our way learns why humans are considered dangerous. The team nodded. There was no Fear in their eyes, only cold determination. Fuego blew the ramp. The shaped charge peeled the boarding ramp open like a tin. Can alarms began shrieking inside the ship. Reapers poured through the breach. The first corridor was empty. The Korth crew still reacting to the intrusion. Detention block should be 3 decks down, Ghost said, pulling schematics from the station's database. Central spine, aft section. They moved through the ship like a surgical strike. The corridors were built for insectoid physiology, low ceilings and narrow passages that forced the humans to move in single file. The first group of Korth soldiers came around corner at full sprint. There were 8 of them, armed with plasma rifles and shock batons. They died in the crossfire. The Reapers didn't slow down, didn't stop to confirm kills. They stepped over the bodies and kept moving. Contact side corridor. Torch called out. More Korth were flooding in from the ship's barracks. The humans set up a hasty defensive position, using a bulkhead for cover. Plasma bolts scorched the air, superheating the metal walls. Hammers, heavy machine gun roared, sending a stream of armor-piercing rounds down the corridor. Korth soldiers fell in pieces. Fuego, seal it, Havoc ordered. The demolitions expert slapped a charge on the wall and detonated it. The ceiling collapsed, blocking the corridor with tons of twisted metal. That'll slow them down, Fuego said with satisfaction. They fought their way deeper into the ship. Every intersection was a potential ambush. Every corridor could hide enemies, but the Reapers had something the Korth didn't: experience fighting in close quarters against superior numbers. They used every trick in the book: flashbangs to blind groups of enemies, EMP grenades to disable Korth energy shields, precise fire to exploit weak points in chitinous armor. Ghost hacked door controls as they moved, sealing passages behind them and creating false sensor readings to confuse the Korth response. The ship's internal comm system crackled with insectoid clicking. The Korth commander rallying his troops. They're converging on our position, Ghost warned. How many? At least 60, maybe more. Then we need to move faster. They descended through a maintenance shaft, bypassing 2 decks of hostile territory. The detention block was close now. Havoc could feel it. Spent years in the military, then more years as a mercenary. He knew the rhythm of combat, knew when a mission was about to go sideways. This one was balanced on a knife's edge. They emerged in a corridor lined with cell doors. The air stank of fear and pain. Ghost checked his scanner. 3rd cell on the left. Havoc ran to the door and looked through the narrow viewport. What he saw made his blood run cold. Mama Sil was crammed into a cage designed for beings half her size. Her magnificent wings were folded at impossible angles. One clearly broken burn marks covered her scales where they tortured her with shock weapons. Her breathing was labored, her eyes half closed, but she was alive. Get this door open, Havoc ordered, his voice tight with controlled rage. Ghost's equipment interfaced with the locket. Took precious seconds they didn't have. The sound of Korth soldiers approaching echoed through the corridors. Boss, we've got company, Cooper warned. Hold them off. We're not leaving without her. The cell door hissed open. Havoc stepped inside, and Mama Sil's eyes opened, even battered and broken. She was magnificent, Commander Morrison, she whispered, her voice rough with pain. You shouldn't have come. Yeah, well, Kira asked us to, Havoc said gently. And we don't say no to that kid. Mama Sil's laugh turned into a cough. She is special. Can you walk? I will try. Havoc helped the elderly Draconi to her feet. She was heavy despite her injuries, and her broken wing dragged on the floor outside. Weapons fire had begun. The Korth had found them. Ghost, tell me you've got an exit strategy, Havoc said into his comm. Working on it, boss, but we've got a problem. What kind of problem? There are other prisoners here. 24 at least various species. Havoc looked down the corridor and saw them beings from across the galaxy. All imprisoned by the Korth, some were barely more than children. He thought of Kira. Alone and frightened in the hangar, he thought of how easily she could have ended up in a cage like this if Mama Sil hadn't found her. The decision was easy. We're taking them all, he said. Ghost didn't argue, none of them did, because that was what it meant to be human. You didn't leave people behind, not ever. The freed prisoners stumbled out of their cells, blinking in the harsh corridor lighting. There were 23 of them. Voltron engineers with their crystalline skin cracked from abuse. Mandari traders missing limbs. Even 2 young Sarian whose scales had dulled from malnutrition. They looked at the humans with a mixture of hope and confusion. Can you fight? Havoc asked the Voltron female, who looked less beaten than the others. She stared at him with multifaceted eyes that reflected rainbow colors. I am crystalline engineer Vester, she said, her voice like wind chimes. I can do better than fight. I can sabotage this vessel's power systems. Havoc grinned. Ghost, get her to an engineering terminal. On it. Fuego was already at the detention block's armory. Breaking open weapon lockers, he distributed plasma rifles and energy pistols to the prisoners who looked capable of using Thema. Mandari trader with one arm missing took a rifle anyway, tucking it against his shoulder with practiced ease. I was security before the Korth took my ship, he explained. What's your name? Havoc asked. Carthan. All right, Carthan. You're on point with Torch. Keep our left flank secure. The one-armed Mandari nodded grimly outside the detention block. The sound of weapons fire intensified. Cooper's heavy machine gun was chewing through ammunition at an alarming rate. Boss, we can't hold this position much longer, he called out. Fall back to the detention block. We'll make our stand here. The Reapers retreated through the doorway, setting up a defensive perimeter. The detention block had only 2 entrances, which made it easier to defend, but also meant they were trapped. Fuego placed shaped charges on both doorways. On your word. I can bring the ceiling down and seal us in, he offered. Not yet. We need an exit first. Ghost and Vexter were working frantically at a terminal, the Voltron's crystalline fingers moving faster than human eyes could follow. The ship's power core is 3 decks below us, she explained. If I can access the containment protocols, I can trigger a cascade failure. How long until meltdown? Ghost asked. 10 minutes? Perhaps 12, but I need direct access to the engineering console. That's on the other side of the ship, Ghost said. Checking schematics, Havoc looked at his team. They were low on ammunition, surrounded by hundreds of hostile soldiers, and now needed to cross a Korth warship to reach engineering. It was an impossible ask. Torch. Hammer, you're with me, Havoc ordered. We're going to engineering. Boss, that's suicide, Cooper protested. Then I guess we die doing something useful, Ghost. You're in command here. Hold this position and get these people ready to move. Where are we moving to? Ghost asked. The shuttle bay. It's our only way off this ship. Mama Sil, sitting against a wall with her broken wing cradled gently, spoke up. Commander, you cannot abandon your defensive position for my sake. We're not, Havoc said, kneeling beside her. We're doing this because it's right. Besides, Kira would never forgive us if we left you behind. The elderly Draconi's eyes glistened. Humans are remarkable creatures. We're stubborn as hell. There's a difference. Havoc stood and checked his rifle. Fuego, give us every explosive you can spare. The demolitions expert handed over half his payload. Enough charges to level a building. Make it count. Boss, Havoc, Torch, and Hammer slipped out through a maintenance hatch that Vexter had located. The corridor beyond was empty for now, but they could hear Korth soldiers mobilizing throughout the ship. We move fast and loud, Havoc said. No stealth. We want them chasing us and leaving Ghost position alone. They ran through the ship's corridors. And when they encountered Korth soldiers, they didn't slow down. Hammer's machine gun blazed, clearing entire passages. Torch threw grenades around corners. The explosions creating chaos and confusion. Havoc led the way, his rifle barking death at anything that moved. The Korth couldn't understand what they were facing. Most species, when surrounded and outnumbered, would surrender or negotiate. Humans just fought harder on the detention block. Ghost watched the security feeds as Havek's team carved a path of destruction through the ship. They're pulling soldiers away from our position, he observed. Fuego grinned. That's the boss, always thinking 3 moves ahead. The freed prisoners watched in amazement as 3 humans held off dozens of Korth. How are they doing this? One whispered. Ghost checked his ammunition count. Humans have this thing we call stubbornness, he explained. When we decide something needs doing, we don't stop until it's done or we're dead, usually both. In the corridor outside, a squad of Korth soldiers made another attempt to breach the detention block. They came with plasma cutters and heavy weapons. Cooper met them with controlled bursts from his position behind an overturned equipment locker. The freed prisoners who could fight added their own fire. Carthan, the one-armed Mendari, fought with the skill of someone who had survived 100 battles. His plasma rifle never stopped firing. A young Sarian female who couldn't have been more than 16 used a pistol with shaking hands. She was terrified, but she kept shooting. Anyway, good girl, Ghost encouraged. Keep that barrel steady, Mama Sil. Despite her injuries, was giving tactical advice. Her centuries of life experience proved invaluable. The Korth favor overwhelming force, she explained. They expect enemies to break under sustained assault. If we hold firm, they will make mistakes. She was right. After the 3rd failed assault, the Korth commander made a critical error. He pulled troops from other sections of the ship, creating gaps in his defensive lines. Gaps that Havok's team exploited ruthlessly. 3 decks down, Havok and his men fought through the final corridor leading to engineering. They were bleeding from a dozen wounds, their armor scorched and dented, but they were still moving. The engineering bay doors were sealed and reinforced. Torch burned through it. Havok ordered. His brother pulled out a plasma cutter and went to work. Hammer and Havok held the corridor, their combined firepower keeping the Korth at bay. 30 seconds. Torch called out. A Korth grenade bounced down the corridor. Havok kicked it back, and it detonated among a cluster of enemy soldiers. The engineering door fell open inside. Korth technicians scrambled for weapons. They died before they could draw them. Vexthor's voice crackled over the comm. I am accessing the systems now, she said. Her consciousness somehow linked to the terminal through Ghost's equipment. Stand by. Holographic displays filled the engineering bay. Havok watched as alien script scrolled past, incomprehensible to human eyes. How long? He asked. I need 2 minutes to bypass the safety protocols. You've got one, Havok said. Hearing more Korth soldiers approaching, Hammer set up his machine gun at the doorway. Torch armed grenades and placed them strategically. Havok reloaded his rifle and prepared for what would likely be their last stand. The Korth came in waves. The first wave died in the doorway. The second wave made it 5 meters into the room before Torch's grenades cut them down. The third wave brought heavy weapons and energy shields. Hammer's machine gun clicked empty. I'm out, he shouted. Havok tossed him his sidearm. Make it count. The battle became desperate and two-hand combat as Korth soldiers got too close for rifles. Torch used his plasma cutter like a sword, the superheated blade cutting through chitin armor. Hammer fought with his bare hands when his pistol ran dry. His power armor's enhanced strength, turning each punch into a killing blow. Havok felt a plasma bolt sear across his ribs. The pain was distant, unimportant. All that mattered was buying Vexthor the time she needed. Done, the Voltron announced triumphantly. Power core containment failure initiated 10 minutes until critical overload. Ghost, you hear that? Havoc called into his comm. Confirmed. Boss, we're moving to the shuttle bay now. See you there. Havoc looked at his brother and Cooper. They were all wounded, all exhausted. Time to leave. Gentlemen, they fought their way back through corridors now filling with emergency lighting and blaring. Alarms the Korth were in chaos. Torn between stopping the intruders and trying to prevent their ship from exploding, the humans didn't give them time to organize. They ran through smoke and fire, leaving a trail of bodies behind them at the shuttle bay. Ghost had commandeered a Korth transport shuttle. The freed prisoners were already aboard, helping Mama Sil up the boarding ramp, despite her protests that others should go first. Everyone on. Ghost shouted. Havesh teams sprinted across the Baycore. Soldiers were converging from every direction. Fuego was the last one up the ramp. Turned and threw his remaining explosives into the bay. Fire in the hole. The blast sealed the bay entrance. Ghost piloted the shuttle away from the dying warship through the viewport. They could see Waypoint Tertius growing larger behind them. The Korth vessel's power core reached critical mass. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star. The shockwave caught the shuttle, sending it tumbling. But Ghost fought the controls and kept them flying. Havoc sat down heavily, pressing a hand to his bleeding ribs. Mama Sil reached out with one clawed hand and touched his shoulder. Thank you, she said softly. Haddock managed a tired smile. Tell Kira she can keep Blade's lucky coin, he said. I think we used up all our luck today. The shuttle limped toward Waypoint Tertius, behind them. Debris from the Korth warship scattered across the Void. 23 free prisoners watched in silence. They had just witnessed something most species thought impossible. Humans willing to risk everything for. Strangers willing to fight impossible odds for what was right. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson. You could hurt many things without consequence, but you never, ever hurt someone a human loved. The damaged shuttle wobbled as it approached Waypoint Tertius, trailing smoke and venting atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. Ghost fought the controls, his neural interface pushing the vessel's damaged systems beyond their limits. Bay doors opening, he announced. Brace for rough landing. The shuttle hit the hangar deck hard, skidding sideways and leaving a trail of sparks before finally coming to rest. Boarding ramp dropped before the engines fully powered down. Havoc was first out. Scanning for threats, the hangar was packed with people. Word had spread across the station about the attack on the Korth warship. Representatives from a dozen species stood watching, along with station security forces who seemed unsure whether to arrest the Reapers or applaud them. Then Havoc heard a sound that made everything worth it. Havoc! Havoc! Kira broke free from Rookie's grip and ran across the hangar deck. Her small legs pumped as fast as they could carry her, tears streaming down her face. But these were different tears behind Havoc. Mama Sil limped down the ramp, supported by torch and hammer. Her wing hung useless. Her scales were burned and broken, but she was alive. Kira reached Havoc first, nearly bowling him over despite his power armor. You brought her back, the little girl sobbed. You really brought her back. Told you we would, Havoc said gently, kneeling down to her level. Then Kira saw Mama Sil. The child's cry of joy echoed through the hangar. She ran to her dragon mom, and the elderly Draconi collapsed to her knees, ignoring the pain, to embrace the sobbing child. The two of them held each other while the entire hangar watched. Hardened mercenaries, cynical traitors, even the station security officers found themselves blinking away. Unexpected moisture. Sarah Chun approached, her medical bag already open. Let me see those injuries, she said professionally. Though her eyes were suspiciously bright, the medical team descended on both Mama Sil and the wounded Reapers. The freed prisoners disembarked slowly, Still in shock, many of them had been captive for months or even years, Vexthar. The Voltron engineer approached Ghost. "Your people risked everything for us," she said. "For strangers you did not know." Ghost shrugged, wincing as the medic treated a plasma burn on his arm. "That's what humans do," he said simply. "Why?" she asked, genuinely confused. "Your species gains nothing from this. You have made enemies of the Korth Collective over beings you had never met." "Because it was right," Ghost replied. "That's reason enough." Vexthar's crystalline features reflected wonder. "We heard stories about humanity," she said quietly. "We thought they were exaggerations. They're not," Ghost said with a tired grin across the hangar. Station security commander, a Veltian named Korthex, approached Havoc. Insectoid officer's antennae twitched with what might have been nervousness. "Commander Morrison, I have orders to detain you and your team pending an investigation into what?" Havoc interrupted, his voice cold. "Rescuing kidnapped civilians from slavers? The Korth Collective has filed a complaint. Their warship was destroyed. Over 300 crew members lost. Their warship was engaged in illegal detention and torture." Ghost called out, holding up a data chip. "I pulled their entire database before we left, ship's logs, prisoner manifests, communications. All of it proves they've been running slaving operations for decades." Korthex's antennae drooped. "Nevertheless, I have my orders." A new voice cut through the tension. "Those orders are rescinded." Everyone turned to see Ambassador Chun Yun Fat, the human diplomatic representative to Waypoint Tertius. The elderly statesman walked across the hangar with the calm authority of someone who had negotiated treaties with warlords and crime lords. "Ambassador, the Korth have diplomatic immunity." Korthex began. "Had diplomatic immunity," the ambassador corrected. "As of 10 minutes ago, the Galactic Council voted to suspend Korth Collective privileges pending investigation into charges of systematic enslavement, torture, and trafficking." He held up a holographic display showing the council vote. The evidence Commander Morrison's team provided was quite convincing. Havoc blinked. "You already sent it to the council?" "Ghost transmitted it the moment your shuttle cleared the Korth vessel," the ambassador said with a slight smile. "I've spent the past 15 minutes in emergency session with council representatives, showing them recordings of Korth soldiers torturing an elderly Draconi diplomat and attacking a child. The optics were not favorable for the Korth around the hangar." The mood shifted. Station security relaxed. The watching civilians began to murmur approval. Korthex's antennae waved in what might have been the Veltian equivalent of a shrug. Then, "I suppose there is no issue," he said, and walked away. Ambassador Chun approached Mama Sil, who was being fitted with a medical brace for her wing, Matriarch Siltherax. "The Draconi Council sends their regards," he said formally. "They are pleased you survived this ordeal." Mama Sil inclined her head gracefully despite the pain. "I survived because of these humans," she said. "They risked everything for me and for strangers they had never met." "Yes," the ambassador agreed. "They have a tendency to do that. It makes diplomacy interesting." Kira clutched Mama Sil's clawed hand. Refusing to let go, Blade sat down beside them, checking the little girl's earlier injuries. "You were very brave," Blade told Kira. "I held your lucky coin the whole time," Kira said, pulling the battered coin from her pocket. "You keep it," Blade said gently. "I think it belongs to you now." The freed prisoners were being processed by station medical teams. Carthan, the one-armed Mendari, approached Havoc. "My ship and my crew were destroyed by the Korth 2 years ago," he said. "I thought I would die in their cells, but your people gave me my life back. What will you do now?" Havoc asked. "Rebuild," Carthan said firmly. "And I will tell everyone I meet about what happened here today, about the humans who fought impossible odds because it was right." Over the next hour, similar conversations played out across the hangar. Each freed prisoner sought out the Reapers to offer thanks. Many of them were crying. One young Sarian female, barely 16, stood before Cooper with her head bowed. "I am alive because of you," she said in halting standard. "My family, they thought I was dead. Now I can go home." Cooper, the gruff heavy weapons specialist who had fought through 100 war zones, found himself at a loss for words. "You're welcome, kid." He managed Fuego, was organizing the team's equipment, taking inventory of what they'd lost. "We're down 3 rifles, most of our explosives, and my favorite plasma cutter," he reported. "Worth it?" Havoc asked. Fuego looked across the hangar at Kira and Mama Sil, still holding each other. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Worth it." Ghost was surrounded by reporters' news of the incident had spread across the station faster than light. "Is it true you destroyed a Korth warship single-handedly?" one asked. "There were 6 of us," Ghost corrected, "plus about 24 free prisoners who fought like demons. Why did you do it?" Another reporter asked. Ghost thought about how to answer, how to explain human pack loyalty to species who thought in terms of alliances and mutual benefit. "Because they hurt our friend," he said finally. "And they hurt a little girl. Humans don't let that slide, even against overwhelming odds?" "Especially against overwhelming odds," Ghost replied. "That's when humans are most dangerous." The interview was broadcast across the sector and the hangar. Medical teams finally cleared Mama Sil for transport to the station's main hospital. She would need surgery to repair her wing and extensive treatment for her injuries. But she would survive as the medical transport prepared to leave. Kira refused to let go of Mama Sil's hand. "I'm coming with you," the little girl insisted. "Of course you are, little one," Mama Sil said gently. Havoc watched them go, feeling the weight of the day settle on his shoulders. His ribs ached where the plasma bolt had seared him. His team was exhausted, wounded, and had just made enemies of one of the galaxy's major powers. But Kira was safe. Mama Sil was alive. 24 prisoners were free. Had take that trade any day. Blade approached, her arm in a sling from the surgery to repair plasma damage. "The Korth Collective is demanding reparations," she reported. "They're calling us pirates and terrorists. Let them," Havoc said. "We've got the evidence. They've got nothing but bluster." "The ambassador thinks the council might actually take action this time," Blade continued. "Shut down the Korth slaving operations permanently." "Good." Torch limped over, his leg bandaged. "So what now, boss?" Havoc looked around the hangar at his team. They were beaten up, low on supplies, and would probably face political fallout for months, but their eyes were bright. They'd done something that mattered. "Now," Havoc said, "we rest, then we go visit Mama Sil and Kira in the hospital. And after that?" Havoc smiled. "After that, we wait for the next person who needs help. Because that's what we do." The Terran Reapers had sent a message to the Galaxy, a message written in fire and blood and stubborn human determination. You could be stronger, you could be faster, you could have better technology and greater numbers, but if you hurt someone a human loved, none of that would save you, because humans didn't fight for territory or resources. They fought for family, and they never, ever gave up. 3 days after the incident, Waypoint Tertius still buzzed with gossip and speculation. The destroyed Korth warship had become the talk of every bar, trading post, and diplomatic lounge. In the sector news feeds across 100 worlds showed footage of the explosion, of the free prisoners, of a small hybrid girl embracing her dragon moment in the Terran Reaper's hangar. Life was slowly returning to normal. Mechanics worked on repairing battle damage to the fighters. Fresh supplies had arrived, courtesy of several grateful species whose citizens had been among the freed prisoners. Havoc stood in his small office, reviewing the political aftermath. Galactic Council had convened emergency sessions for 3 days straight. The evidence Ghost had stolen from the Korth ship was damning decades of illegal operations. Thousands of victims, systematic torture, and enslavement. The Korth Collective's response had been predictable. Denials, counter-accusations, demands for reparations. But the evidence was irrefutable counsel. Member species who had long profited from Korth business were suddenly distancing themselves. Sanctions were being discussed military. Intervention was being planned one human. Action had accomplished what decades of diplomatic pressure could not Havoc's. Console beeped a message from Ambassador Chan. The Council has voted to authorize military action against Korth slaving operations. Human forces have been requested to lead the task force. Given our demonstrated effectiveness in such matters, Havoc smiled grimly. That was diplomatic speak for. You humans are crazy enough to actually fight them. So you go first. He would forward the message to command, but that was a problem for another day-to-day. He had somewhere else to Beatty stations. Medical center was quieter than the hangar Havoc walked through. Corridors that smelled of disinfectant and synthetic air. He found the room he was looking for. Mama Sil was propped up in a specialized bed designed for large beings. Her wing had been surgically repaired and hung in an antigrav support frame. The burns on her scales were healing. Treated with advanced regenerative therapy, Kira sat beside the bed in a chair that was far too big for her, holding Mama Sil's clawed handblade. Ghost, Torch, and Cooper were already there, along with several of the freed prisoners who had stopped by to visit Commander Morrison. Mama Sil greeted him warmly. "Thank you for coming. How are you feeling?" Havoc asked. "Like I was beaten by Korth soldiers and then had my wing rebuilt," she said with gentle humor. "Which is to say, better than I have any right to be." Kira jumped down from her chair and ran to hug Havoc. "The doctors say Mama Sil can come home in 2 more days," she announced excitedly. "That's great news, kid." The little girl pulled something from her pocket, Blade's lucky coin. "I've been keeping it safe," she said seriously. Just like Blade asked. "You did a good job." Vexter, the Voltron engineer, entered the room carrying a small device. "Matriarch Silthorax, I have completed the anti-gravity brace for your wing," she said. "It will support the weight while the bones heal. You should regain full flight capability in approximately 6 months. You have my gratitude." Crystalline engineer, "It is I who owe you gratitude," Vexter replied. "You and these remarkable humans." She turned to the Reapers. "I have been contacted by 17 major engineering firms offering me positions," she explained. "Word has spread about my role in sabotaging the Korth ship. Apparently such skills are valuable." "That's great," Ghost said. "I have accepted none of them," Vexter continued. "Instead, I am establishing my own firm here on Waypoint Tertius, and I would like to offer my services to the Terran Reapers at a considerable discount." "We can't afford to pay much," Havoc warned. "I do not require much payment," Vexter said. "You gave me my freedom that is worth more than credits." She placed the anti-gravity brace on Mama Sil's wing. The device hummed to life, and the elderly Draconi sighed with relief as the weight lifted. "That is considerably better." Carthan, the one-armed Mendari, arrived with several other freed prisoners. They brought food, traditional dishes from their homeworlds, prepared as thank you gifts. "My family sent these," explained the young Sarian girl. "When I told them what happened, they insisted I bring offerings to the warriors who saved." For me, the small hospital room became crowded with beings from across the galaxy. They shared stories and food. They laughed and cried. They celebrated being alive. Kira moved among them all, accepting hugs and treats with the unself-conscious joy of a child who had gotten her family back. Havoc watched her and felt something tight in his chest loosen. This is what they had fought for, not glory or profit, just this moment, this simple happiness. Later, after the visitors had left, Havoc found himself alone with Mama Sil and Kira. The little girl had fallen asleep in her oversized chair, exhausted by excitement. "She has not left my side since you brought me back," Mama Sil said softly. "Even when the doctors insisted she needed rest. She loves you, and I love her," Mama Sil replied. "More than I thought possible. I had no offspring of my own. You understand, my life was dedicated to scholarship and diplomacy. Then I found this tiny creature, starving and alone, and everything changed." Havoc nodded. He understood the Terran Reapers had been just another mercenary squadron before Mama Sil and Kira became part of their lives. Now they were something more. "The Korth will not forget what you did," Mama Sil said. "Good," Havoc replied. "I want them to remember every slaver, every torturer, every being who thinks they can hurt the innocent without consequence. I want them to know that humans are watching, and that we don't forgive." Mama Sil's eyes reflected ancient wisdom. "Your species is young compared to mine," she observed. "We Draconi have walked the stars for 10,000 years. In all that time, I have never encountered a people quite like humans. Other species fight for survival, for territory, for resources, but humans fight for love. Is that unusual?" Havoc asked. "Remarkably so," Mama Sil said. "Most species believe love is weakness, something to be exploited. Humans understand the truth. Love is the greatest source of strength in the universe." She gestured to the sleeping child. "You risked your lives for us, not for profit, not for political advantage, but simply because we mattered to you. That is a rare and precious thing." Havoc felt oddly embarrassed by the praise. "We just did what needed doing." "Yes," Mama Sil agreed. "And that is what makes it remarkable." The next day, the station held an unofficial ceremony in the main plaza. The freed prisoners wanted to publicly thank the Terran Reaper Station Command, seeing the political advantage, agreed to host beings from dozens of species gathered to watch. The Reapers stood uncomfortably at attention while each freed prisoner spoke. Carthan described the hellish conditions aboard the Korth prison ship. The young Sarian told of watching her family's transport destroyed. Vexithar explained how she had lost hope until humans arrived. Each story was more heartbreaking than the last. When the final prisoner finished speaking, the plaza erupted in applause. Kira, standing with Mama Sil at the edge of the crowd, clapped so hard her small hands hurt. The Galactic News Network broadcast the ceremony across known space. The footage of human warriors standing silently while former prisoners praised them became iconic. Several major powers extended formal diplomatic overtures to Earth. The human ambassador found himself suddenly very popular, but the most important reaction came from unexpected quarters in the lower decks of Waypoint Tertius, where the desperate and hopeless gathered. Word spread quickly humans would help. Humans didn't look away. Over the following weeks, 3 different groups approached the Terran Reapers with requests for help. A group of Mendari refugees fleeing persecution of Ultron. Scientific team trapped in disputed territory. A human colony under threat from raiders. The Reapers took all 3 contracts, not for money, though they accepted what payment could be offered, but because it was right. Their reputation grew. Other human mercenary groups began operating under the same principle: help those who needed it, protect the innocent, never leave anyone behind. It became known as the Reaper Protocol. Within a year, dozens of human squadrons across the galaxy had adopted it. Galaxy was changing, not through treaties or grand diplomatic initiatives, but through small acts of courage and compassion. One rescued child at a time. 6 months after the incident, Mama Sil's wing had healed completely. She stood in the Terran Reaper's hangar, watching Kira draw pictures on the deck. Plating with colored chalk, the little girl was drawing the fighters, each one labeled with its pilot's calcine. Havoc approached, 2 cups of coffee in handy, offered one to Mama Sil, who had developed a taste for the human beverage. The doctors cleared you for travel. He noted. Yes, Mama Sil confirmed. I could return to the Draconi homeworld if I wished, but... Havoc prompted, hearing the unspoken word. But my home is here now, Mama Sil said simply. With my daughter and with the strange, wonderful humans who have become my family. Kira looked up from her drawing. Are we staying? She asked hopefully. We are staying, little one. The child's whoop of joy echoed through the hangars. She ran to hug both Havoc and Mama Sil. Her small arms not quite reaching around either of them. Blade emerged from the maintenance bay, wiping grease from her hands. Did I hear correctly? She asked. You're staying? We are, Mama Sil confirmed. Outstanding, Blade said with a grin. Kira still needs to learn proper hand-to-hand combat. She is 7 years old. Mama Sil protested. Never too early to learn. Blade replied. The discussion devolved into friendly argument. Kira giggled. Havoc sip.